Get ready to challenge conventional beliefs about what's possible in creating health, wealth, and happiness. You are listening to Playing on the Edge Radio with Megan Edge. This hit show is providing you with ways of sustaining radical and powerful changes in your life. It is time to open and expand your awareness, accelerate your well-being as Megan shares wisdom, teachings, and experience from a lifelong journey of the heart. Enact the power of radical change with ease and lift your desires to a new perspective. Now, here's Playing on the Edge Radio.
Wow. Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Pat. I get to join Megan Edge with this conversation about Playing on the Edge Radio. Today, I just want to say two things. One is we're going to be talking about what does it mean to be on the edge of desire. Mm-hmm. And desire is one of my favorite words. But I want to take a moment, Megan, if we could, because we don't really take time to do this. And it is directly related to the word desire. We don't take time to talk about what you're creating in your life, in your world. And I want to take a moment to do that. I want to talk about the confident healer. I want to talk about, what's happening with you on social media, because these manifestations are a result of desire, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's something that I was thinking about before the show started is what do we do when the desire has been fulfilled or has been met? Where do we take it next? And in the context of the work that I do and what I've created, one of my desires for such a long time, 20, 30 years, I had this desire to teach people about themselves and to help them fulfill their own potential and their own empowerment. And I wasn't clear when I was much younger what that was going to look like, but I could feel it in my body that there was this wisdom that I could access, which I could then share with others. And part of that desire was to teach. And from that, and from all the work that I've done, has come what is now essentially a school that is centered around the art of healing. The Confident Healer is an intuitive, intensive healers program that now certifies those people who have that burning desire to be of help, to be of service in the world, to make a difference in the world in this healing way. It gives them the opportunity to learn the tools and the techniques that I have worked with, that I've developed, that I've created, and in a 10-month intensive, be qualified to open up their own healing studio and help other people with their own transformations.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, there's a whole energy segment to the work that I do, and the energy work that I have trained in, being the foundation being Reiki. I have then taken all of that and created another training program called Intuitive Energy Massage, which I'm now certifying healers in so that they can take that transformational modality into their healing work as well, and take their clients into a deeper place of permanent healing, radical healing.
I love it. And we don't take enough time to talk about this. We don't. And today's show is about desire. And so if we don't take a moment to really stop for a minute and say, yeah, today's show is on the edge of desire. And what I love about this is it's kind of cool to kind of watch you almost being like growing up in my family, animated when you talk about it. And I actually think your mic is hitting your little heart jewelry. So we're getting a little extra sound from that. But this is the point about desire and passion coming together. And, every once in a while, we got to bang a drum or two.
That's right.
We got to bang a drum or two. We got to just shake up our heart a little bit, with our voices. And so I love that happened, because here's what I love about observing it. I'm thinking to myself, wow, where is our voice in the conversation of desire? Number one. And it's important to talk about how we go from desire to manifesting what you talked about. We're going to talk about it throughout the show today, right?
Yes. Yeah,
here's
absolutely.
The question. Let's talk about, from your perspective and what you teach, what is desire? Is it a need? Is it a want? Or is it something totally different from your experience?
I would say it's all of the above. And even more than that, it's a physical, for me, it's a physical experience. Even just talking about desire, I can feel it right in my solar plexus. This intuitive place in our body that we lead with energetically, that we can follow the energy that comes out of our sacral center, and we can trust that energy to take us in the direction that is our ultimate desire. If we are honest with ourselves about what that desire is, Pat. Because what I find in the work that I do, and even with my students, for them to fully embody their desire means they have to be completely honest with what it is that they want and why they want it. And that's not always an easy thing for us to do, because it takes us into a place of vulnerability. To really truly say what you desire, and then to believe that you have the capacity to fulfill that desire, to manifest it, like you said, that's a leap of faith. So I would say, actually, that brings it right around, that desire is a leap of faith. And that's why we're on the edge of desire. I'm getting covered in goosebumps as I'm saying this. There's so much energy behind that. To say yes to what you truly want, knowing it's your truth, and having the courage to do that. Honestly, Pat, I think it brings everything we've ever talked about in all of these shows. It brings it down to this one beautiful moment, that desire is a leap of faith.
Yeah, let's talk about this in real terms. So for the people that are listening, both Megan and I, we have desires. Jessica has desires. Benny has desires. Carter has desires. Matter of fact, Carter is actually manifesting his desire. So is Benny. Carter's going off on vacation to Switzerland. But, you and I, Megan, we have desires. And I want to talk about how we get from a desire that may not really even seem like a desire to you and I talking about this today, Facebook Live, on the network. I can't even begin to even talk about how this network even manifested. But the point that I want to have with you is, how have these desires, both yours and mine, stemmed from wanting to help people?
That's exactly what they've stemmed from. As you're talking, I'm feeling into the amount of time in linear time that it has taken me to create this body of work that I now teach other people in. And it has been a 10-year journey from the moment I put my shingle out and called myself healer, capital H healer. It's also been an almost 50-year journey of being in this life and having all of my life experiences and being willing to allow my life experiences to be the direction that my desire has taken. So, for example, one of the things I want to share with our audience, and if you're listening on the radio, I'll describe this. This is the manual that I've written out of all of my experiences for the Confident Healer. And the whole thing, it's so beautifully put together.
Let's see that.
It's all my own photography, pictures that I've taken over my journey. My husband, Darren, has put it all together into this absolutely gorgeous manual. There's the root chakra.
Wow.
And this takes my students through these each month a different area of metaphysical healing, a different area of their own healing. So for my students to have the desire to be a healer is actually not enough. They also need to have the desire to do their own healing work. So that they can really truly hold space for somebody else's journey without getting themselves caught up in the other person's story, right? If they've done their own healing work, then they can hold that space. They'll recognize that boundary and really be able to do it. So like I've had students say to me, well, I just want to learn the technique. I don't want to do the personal work. Then it's not a fit. This is an intensive. You have to have the desire to do the intensive work on yourself in order to be able to truly show up as one of my healers, as a mind, body, and soul healer, which is your certification. All of this has taken time. And my point is that when somebody looks at what I have created now and sees the intuitive energy massage manuals that I've written and the Confident Healer and the way that it's structured and all the videos I've created and everything, that whole social media, the whole body of work, it looks it looks impressive. It is impressive, but it's also come out of each day doing something, either in my own healing or with my clients or with my students. And it's each day over the last 10, 15, 20 years of saying yes to that desire that sits in my solar plexus to be able to make a difference in the world and to be able to have the capacity to help other people recognize what their desire is and feel safe enough to pursue that desire.
Yeah.
It takes time.
It takes time. And what I love
Mhm.
about this is we're going to talk about this throughout the show today. But one of the things I realized when you and I both, we looked at our lives and we had some situations which you previously have talked about in our lives that
Mhm.
warranted healing, even if we didn't know they did. In my case, I had healed a lot of things, but the reality was that I had never really had to, quote, heal my body, which carried the cellular memory of past wounds. I had
Yeah.
not really, nobody ever said to me, "Ah, you got a past life this or no, no."
Mhm.
So what
Mhm.
happened 6 months after saying yes, dialing a phone number, buying an hour of airtime on internet only radio, then buying 5 days a week on KKNW, another credit card, paying for airtime. Just in case folks don't know, the reason we're here is because we buy airtime to do this, right?
Mhm.
But why was it at that point in time on April 1st of 2004, I came down with what they called the mystery disease? We're going to take a short break because Megan, I'm not going
Yeah.
to explain this. Megan's going to explain this. When we come back, we're going to talk about what it is we learn about empowered, collaborative, and personal versus public desire. What happens
Love it.
when we step out into the public? Does it cause a new level of raising a bar for the healing journey? Yeah, let's take a short break, everyone, because you might know what I'm talking about. We'll be right back with the show. Today, we're talking about On the Edge of Desire on Playing on the Edge Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, and I'm here with Megan Edge. We'll be right back.
Are you your story? Or can you change your story? Can you change what you believe to be true about yourself and your circumstances as part of your healing journey? What if you were to change your expectations? What if you were to invite ease and cooperation into every day and then step back and see what happens? It might just be easier. I'm Megan Edge, and I hope that you'll join me on my new radio show, Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Talk Radio. I look forward to seeing you there.
I got to get the groove on. Got to be
That's right.
a little groove in it.
Yep. Yep. Got to desire the dance.
Got to desire the dance. That's what I'm talking about. Wow, that's we could go into a whole nother direction with that. Megan, before we jump back, because this is really important for us to be talking about public versus private desire, what it means, and how do we get from that to actually step into the life we want to live.
Right.
And you have prepared, as you showed us earlier, various ways for people to work with you, whether it's coaching, whether it's the workshop. Tell us how they can do that, how they can find out more, and give out your website if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. It's super easy. It's meganedge.ca. Can't go wrong with that. And on the website that you will find the information about the Confident Healer and about the intuitive energy massage. And I just want to let people know that these classes are coming up in September. We're starting a whole new journey of the Confident Healer on September 22nd. And that's the first workshop of the 10-month intensive for the Confident Healer. And then we have ongoing IEM courses. That's the intuitive energy massage. It's a 3-tiered program at this point. So we have level 1, where you learn 2 of the techniques that I've created Level 2 takes you into another 3 techniques. There's actually 5 ways of working with intuitive energy massage. And then people can become master teachers, where they can actually end up teaching their own students and certifying their own students using the teaching modality that I've created for the class. So I've got students who are ongoing towards their master teacher. And then I've also got students coming in at that level 1 or that level 2. And at the end of their practicum from level 1, they can begin offering and getting paid to do this work. Right? And that's something that's really key for my students. I want them to succeed. It really matters to me that they are successful in their healing business, that this work can support them. It can support their families. It can pay the rent. It can put food on the table. They can succeed and thrive doing this work and being of service to other people. And part of what I've created with this is a community of healers. I know when I first started doing this work, I was very isolated. I was doing this work by myself on my own. That's what it felt like. And because I was working so hard to create this, I didn't give myself a lot of time to go out into the community and see who else was out there doing this sort of work and meet people. When I started to teach my workshops, which I've been doing for years now, decades, part of what I wanted to do was to encourage my students to stick together, to help each other out, to work with one another, rather than falling down that rabbit hole of competition. You know, my clients, nobody can have my client. It's the foundation of what I teach is collaboration instead of competition.
Yeah. You know, that leads to this, what we're going to talk about next here. And this is really important. You know, it's really fascinating. I only know what goes on other networks and other places when somebody comes over and they say something like, I can't believe you people. I love that. I can't believe you people do that. I can't believe you're actually going to reach out to the other hosts to have me come on their shows. I mean, it's really fascinating to me because I don't look at what anybody else, I don't get my orders, my marching orders from another network. I get it from a whole nother source of energy, right, Megan? Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've never held back at offering ideas. I mean, I go back to the original station that I started, that wrong phone number on Voice America, and I go back to Jeff. And Jeff has interviewed me and I've interviewed him. And I said, Jeff, when we're done with our technology, you'll get, first refusal for it. I don't think differently like that. And yet it's so important to decide for yourself what that looks like, right? You talked about collaboration among students.
Yes.
I want to talk with you about this with desires, because if I come from a place of lack or scarcity in my initiation of the desire, then perhaps I'm going to bump into situations where lack and scarcity is the norm for that result.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll put out that vibration. Right? It's that the whole way of sort of metaphysical thinking, that the vibration that we create through our desires, we then send that out into the world and it attracts for us the expectation that we have created and the vibration that we have set up for that creation. One of the things that I teach my students how to succeed in their businesses is to put out the energetic invitation for their ideal client to show up for them. And to borrow on one of my mentors' sayings, your ideal client is looking for you. They're not looking for anybody else. They're looking for you. And there are how many billions of people on the planet right now? I don't know, 7? There's enough wounded people in the world to go around that if every single one of us became healers, we'd still have clients. Right? Because of who we are, we will attract those clients who can best benefit from our experiences, our healing, our personality, our vibration. So my client is not going to be the same client that's going to go and see the healer sitting next to me. She or he is going to have their own clients show up who are relating to them. So there is no competition. Right? And so the desire, my personal plus professional desire is, could we just all get along already?
Oh, yeah. Oh, like, come really? On. I'm with you. I am so with you on this, right? But you know what it really points to? It points to this for us to talk about. It points to understanding what is generating my desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
Yes.
is generating my desire to create this thing here?
Yeah.
What is generating that?
Yeah.
And why is it now that there's an entire team of people here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carter, Rob, Jessica, Megan, Marsha, Linda, Kim, Sarah, an entire deal of people here that all of a sudden have the same desire. How does that even happen? But for me, I had to understand
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago what was at the core of that desire.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm not sure I would have been here. Can you talk about how important it is for us to understand? Am I using the right language?
Yeah.
Where the desire comes from.
Yes. And that's part of the honesty piece that I was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
You need to know what your selfish why is. Why do you want this thing that you are desiring, right? So the work that I had to do around that was, why do I want to help people? What is the benefit to me? What do I get out of helping other people? And what do I want to see it become? So I could say, well, I want to save the world. I don't actually want to save the world. And I came to the understanding that the world doesn't need me to save it. So we can let that one go. And in fact, I don't need to save anybody.
Mm.
That's not going to be helpful. If I come to this work with the intention to save others, then I'm not being honest with myself about what it is that is motivating me to do this work.
Wow.
My selfish why is so that I can be here. And by here, if you're watching live on Facebook, you can see that I'm not in my normal office. I'm outside. I'm at my cottage. This is live on Main Island, which is where my cottage is, where my family has been for generations. My girls are the 5th generation of kids to get to grow up and experience life here on Main Island. And my selfish why is so that I do this work so that I can come up here and eventually live here full time and do my work from here. Do my workshops from here, do my retreats from here, bring people to the island so they can experience its healing, its magic, its beauty. All of that is so that I can be here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not to save the world. It's not to save anybody else. It's not to be famous. It's not to be successful. Those can all come as a part of the work that I do, because that would give me a bigger platform, a bigger voice. I could share my beliefs, my truths, my wisdoms if it's helpful to other people. But ultimately, end of the day, my selfish why is so that I can be here with my herb garden, with my beach, listening to the ravens, and just being.
Yeah. You know what, this is really fascinating conversation, because one of the things that I want to just really get to is the ego has taken a bad rap for a lot of things in life. The ego gets confusing for people when it gets lumped in to some kind of, now let me use a little psychology term that I rarely use, some kind of abnormal behavior. We blame the ego, which isn't true. See, the ego may be that thing that got me a little bit moving forward on that first hour of airtime. But the interesting thing, and the question I get, is all about the whole idea of showing up as Dr. Pat. And I have to tell people that this was not the name of the show. I never wanted to tell anybody about Dr. Anything. I didn't talk about going back to school. I rarely talked about it to my friends. All they knew is every time we went away for the weekend, I was doing research. The show was called Crust Busting Your Way to an Awesome Life. Why? Because I created crust busting. Why? Because I was so stuck. I didn't have a fancy metaphysical way to talk about it. And yet the desire to share what I learned about getting unstuck was so important. Isn't that the same for you at many levels? It's because you've been through the fire, right?
That's right. Yes. And my personal belief is that if I can do it, anybody can do it. Right? There's nothing special about me that allows me to create what I've created, to stand up in front of people and talk to them, to invite people to come into my courses, to write my books, to publish my books. Like, there's nothing special about me. what is different, I think, is that I have decided, I've made a conscious choice to allow the experiences of my life to have meaning and to have purpose. And I give them sense so that I can learn from them and so that I can truly say, if I can do it, you can do it. Right? If you want to be a healer, get off your ass and get out in the world and do your healing work, because the world needs healers. No more excuses. And if I'm willing to say that to somebody else, I have to be willing to say it to myself too.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, you know, the thing that I discovered, and we're going to talk about this when we come back, because this is really going to get to the core of whether or not you want to create the life you desire. What is it about looking at desires, even the desires sometimes that we generate within ourselves? How can we look at them, whether they're, quote, acceptable or unacceptable, from the same lens of love? What can we do to understand that, so that for most of us, we can look at, is the trauma in our life saving us? Is the trauma in our lives not saving us? What are some of the things that we want to just be mindfully aware of as we look at desires? Because some of them are going to get us to where we want to go, and some of them are not. I know this for a fact. I look at a lot of years of my life where, boy, I just wake up one day and say, how the heck did I get here? Well, I don't have the answer to that, but Megan Edge does. Let's take a short break. Let's come back. She's going to see us through. Did you wake up one day and say, oh boy, how did I get in the middle of that? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered how you might feel differently if the books were full of her instead of him? What if your history lesson was filled with powerful women leaders and rulers? As a woman, would you feel more empowered? As a man, would you see women differently? I'm Megan Edge. I'd love for you to join me on my radio show, Playing on the Edge, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host, Dr. Pat, on Transformation Talk Radio. I hope to see you there.
Okay, I know who that is. Shaka Khan. Right, Benny?
Yes,
Shaka
ma'am.
Khan? That's what I'm saying.
There's a flashback to the 80s.
Yeah, boy. Talk about desire. Woo!
Oh, you know, just popped into my head. The 1980s was very much about the me, right? We went from the 60s that was all about community. We went into the 70s that was all about desire. That decade was really about taking it to the extreme of whatever your desire was, just fully embodying it, whether it was drugs or sex or partying or leaping off tall buildings in a single bound, whatever it was. And then we moved into the energy of the 1980s, and it was very corporate, and it was me.
Oh, God.
All about me.
Oh,
enough about me. What do you think about me?
Oh, this is so my life.
Remember that?
I lived it.
Yeah, me too.
I lived it.
And then I think the 90s was just confused. I think we were just really confused by the time we got to the 1990s. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to want? You know, I think a lot of people went into some really big spirals in the 1990s where they had thought that they knew what they wanted, but then the rug got pulled out from underneath them, and they woke up one morning, like you and I were talking about at the break, with this sudden realization that none of that is what they wanted. That's what their parents wanted. That's what their mother wanted, or their dad wanted, or their culture wanted. It's not what they actually wanted. And I think a lot of people from our generation started moving towards a questioning of what is important to them around that time, especially as we moved into the 2000s and that whole 1999 and the end of the world as we know it and all of that.
But you know what happened in the 90s? I love that you're talking about this, because you're so right about the 80s. I think about what happened between me doing disco at Studio 54, dancing to the Donna Summer, and even before that, like getting all down with the bands like Cream. And then we come into the 80s, and all of a sudden, my promotions, my paycheck, my salary, how far I could go up. I even went back to school, like really undergraduate degree at night, took me 13 years, but it was that. And you're right about the transition in the 80s. It's not like we woke up in 1980 that happened. It was a transition. But in the 90s, here's the interesting thing about the 90s. When you think about the 90s, starting off with the song by Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You.
Oh, yes.
And moving through the mid 90s with the repeal of the psychological contract that says, if you work hard, if you do this, if you do that, and you put in your 30 years and you go ahead and do this, I am going to give you a pension. I am going to give you benefits. I am going to give you that thing that I said I would give you. That went away. That was the 90s. So it's interesting the way you described the 90s. And I think that the generation of people that grew up in the 90s, how could you not be confused?
Yes, because there's no direction, right? In the 50s and 60s, or 50s at least, it was you grow up, you get married, you get your house with the white picket fence, you have your family, you work for the man all the way through. And then, like you say, you get the golden handshake and you retire. It was pretty straightforward for a lot of people. Not for everybody, obviously. There were lots of other things going on in the world. But for the most part, that was the expectation. And I think where we get a lot of those generational clashes is when the next generation doesn't want what their parents wanted. And has the capacity to question it. Like, is this all there is to it? Or is there something more that I could be doing?
Yeah,
that would
I
fulfill
love
me.
that we're talking about this because it does have to do with desire. And it has to do with desire and the idea of fulfillment of that desire. But what it really does talk to, the way you just described that so beautifully, is how desires get impacted by the rules of the game. And can we hold true to our desires even if the rules of the game change, right?
Yes.
Because if you look at this and really look at I don't have an example. I was at the end game of the rules of the game changing. But what if you were a teenager or a young adult and you watched your parents, right, go through the security of all of the years that have come before, the me years, the 80s, now go into the 90s, and it's like you are the last person on the totem pole here. How was it that anybody was able to create a desire other than I'm looking out for me?
Well, it's a great question. And as you're asking it, what's coming to my mind is that piece again about honesty with ourselves, knowing what our truth is, right? And being able to stand in that truth without depreciating anybody else's experiences, right? It wouldn't be helpful for me to say to my dad, your desire for me to own a house is your desire and it's a terrible desire and don't even try to put that on me.
Right.
Because that's being very disrespectful to what he grew up in. Right. His belief is very strongly that everyone, to really stand in your own power, you need to own a home. Well, I've owned a home. I don't now own a home, but I did at a time. And okay, it was all right to own a home, but for me, it wasn't a defining moment. I didn't feel like I'd arrived because I owned a home. My work, I feel like I've arrived when I do my work, when I teach my classes, when I graduate my students out into the world, when I watch my clients move through their journey. Each time they say to me, I'm good now, I'm done, I'm complete, I can go back out in the world and be a whole new me. Awesome. Then I feel like I've arrived. So my desires and his desires are not the same. At the same time, it's not my place, nor would it be helpful to be disrespectful of his desires.
Right. But here's the thing I want to ask you, because those kinds of things, you and I could look at people watching this. They're like, yeah, okay, I understand. But wait a minute. What if you desire something at the expense of another person? Yeah. Do we really believe in the famous quote, the one, the sacrifice of the one for the many? Or are we really saying sacrifice the one for the one? That's what we're talking about. We're gonna enter in a whole new desire, framework here. Yeah. We're not talking about sacrificing the one for the many. I'm like, oh no, we're not sacrificing me for what my desire is, right? We're going to really look at. Let's talk about the moral high ground. I mean, I spent 8 years studying the consequences of breaking promises. People traumatized by that. But the question really is, What if we're out in the world and we want to help these traumatized people? So
Right.
how do we separate those desires that, at least within ourselves, may seem a little bit on the edge? Get it? On the edge?
Yeah, good play on words. Yes.
On the edge, right?
Well, yeah, let's get gritty about this.
Yeah.
All right. There can be good desires and perhaps not good desires. There can be the desire to be altruistic and helpful to other people because that makes us feel good about ourselves. Or there can be the desire to hurt other people because that makes us feel good about ourselves. And who are we to decide, looking in from the outside, what is excuse me, a good healthy desire and what is not a good healthy desire? And if you want to get it even grittier and you move into the whole arena of sex and sensuality and pleasure seeking, and you throw desire in there, I don't know if you got your safe word ready, because that's a whole murky
listen,
area.
Murky is an understatement. Murky is something that happens when you look in the lake and you can't see the fish. That's murky. But I got to tell you how many amends I had to go back and make from my behavior in the 60s, right? Which, by the way, didn't remember half of them. But, as we grow older, the question really then becomes, are there such things as acceptable and unacceptable desires?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a personal level of self-awareness I think we all have to have. But the work that you do, though, is unlike a lot of other work out in this arena. You actually explore this with people, because I got to tell you, this is not an easy journey to go by yourself. I had to go out in the desert twice at 2 vision quests to even figure out that I was in murky water.
Yeah. Well, what was your desire to do that for? I mean, where did that come from? What was the motivation for you?
Beautiful question. Here's what I've learned. When all else is said and done, the universe is so much smarter. God, goddess, universe, life force is so much smarter than me. Do you know how I got to go on my first vision quest? Back when I was in the middle of a doctoral program, working for a boutique consulting firm who was paying me to go to school. The guy flew me back just so I could stay on the project. Do you know what was the desire of that trip? Let's take a short break. We'll be right back, and we'll tell you. I don't want to get into that before we go to break. We'll be right back.
Have you ever heard of the 90-10 rule? It goes like this. 90% of the time, no one is thinking of you. 90% of the time, everyone's thinking about themselves. And if you think of it like that, it takes the weight off, right? Because now you're not being judged. I'm Megan Edge. I'd love for you to join me on Playing on the Edge Radio, Radical Change with Ease, with my co-host Dr. Pat on Transformation Radio FM.
I thought for sure Benny would play George Michael, Careless Whisper, or
how about You Can't Always Get What You Want?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
But you might just cry.
Like, oh,
yeah. You get what you need.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Pat. This is Megan Edge. And for those of you out there, please check it out. There's so much for you to find out about Megan, her work. All you need to do is go to her website, meganedge.ca. You're going to be able to find out about the Confident Healer, about intuitive energy massage, and there's a whole new public forum on Facebook. Yeah, we're talking about desire because Megan is one of the few people that actually works this in to a critical part in the work that she does to help others. And before the break, you had asked me a question, and we're going to talk about fulfillment now, and we're going to talk a little story. You asked me about the vision quest. What was the motivation for the vision quest?
Yeah.
Real simple. The guy that I worked for at the time met the woman who later became my mentor, Sidonia Cahill, who passed away in 99, met this woman went off on her workshop in the desert for the Vision Quest, came back and said to me, I want you to go on the Vision Quest. I'm going to pay for it. And don't forget, I'm paying to fly you back to Claremont every week so you can work here. And I want you to steal her ideas so we can copy them and bring Vision Quest into the corporation.
Wow.
What's your story? Now, that's not how it turned out, but
no, I was going to say, and that was his motivation, though. Right. It's that we were talking about that earlier, the teasing out of what's mine, what's yours.
Yeah. You know what? When I went anyway, knowing that I wasn't going to do that, but I went. You know,
there was a bigger force.
Should I have said, no, I'm not going? That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But I went. I intuitively went. And, you know, Sidonia talked to me. And I think she knew, but I went. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't know how we're going to get there, but we get there. Exactly. How did you get there?
Yeah. I was in a workshop, not running it, but participating in it with one of my business mentors, Sage Levine. Beautiful woman. Check her out. She's doing amazing work for women entrepreneurs. And I was in one of her year-long programs, and we would go down to do these retreats in San Francisco 3 or 4 times during the year. And she took us through this exercise, which I absolutely love. And it's now one that I take my students through. It's called, what's the selfish why? And it's you can have it. And so essentially what you do is 2 people stand facing each other, and one person states every single thing that they could possibly want or desire. And the only response the other person is allowed to give them is, you can have that.
Wow.
And so when this starts, and there's a whole group of us in the room, and there's lots of noise and people are laughing, you know, I want to own an island, I want a jacuzzi, I want $1 million, you can have it, you can have it, you can have it. But you get to this point with this exercise where the energy shifts, because now you're being asked to go deeper. Okay, what more do you want? What more do you want? Take it deeper, because we want to find that selfish why. I hit this place, and I know I'm going to get emotional because I do every time I tell this story. I hit this place where I said, I want my father to be proud of me. I don't know where it came from. I didn't know. I didn't recognize that was my underlying motivation for everything that I did. And as soon as I said it, I burst into tears. I just want my dad to be proud of me. And I realized it was like this cascade effect, that everything I was doing, always in the back of my head was this little tiny voice saying, is daddy going to be proud of me? Is he going to be proud of his little girl? Mm-hmm. What a huge release that was, to recognize that that's what I had been basing everything I'd ever done on, including my work. Will he be proud of me? Once I was able to see that, I could let it go. Yes, I want my dad to be proud of me. Sure, I do. But that's no longer my motivating factor. And I was able to heal that part of me, that little wounded girl who just wanted her dad to not have left her, for her parents not to have separated, you know, all the things that come from that. I was able to do that piece of work. Wow. And then I was able to stand in my own self and put myself in front of my work and say, I am doing this work because I want to do this work. Yeah. Because it matters to me that I can proudly say, I help those people become healers. Those are my healers out there. Yeah. Those are my IEM practitioners. This is my community that I've created for them. I was able to take it deeper, and I was able to say, okay, then I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to say, put me on social media. I'm willing to say, next Oprah? Sure. Why not? Right. I can do that. Yeah. Right? To move into that place in desire where we can say, I can do that. I'm just going to trust. I'm going to trust I can do it, even if I don't know what that's going to look like yet. I'm going to take it from my solar plexus, and I'm going to let the energy lead me forward. Right? And that's the wish, want, create.
I love it.
Which is one of my things that I've created out of the work that I've done, this process of wish, want, and create.
But it freed up a whole lot of space, energetic space that was holding.
Yes.
Right? It's not that it was wrong.
No.
But it was occupying space.
Perfect.
So
I love how you say that.
Other desire could not come in. So you could take that next step. Right? Yeah. I mean, each of us has that thing within us. Otherwise, we would have lived just a perfect life and none of that would exist. But once that space gets cleared out, we can then occupy it with the truth of that desire, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And we can take it deeper and we can take it further.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of seeking approval
Yeah.
for my actions and my decisions, I came to a place of recognizing I'm the ultimate one who is responsible for my life, my desires being fulfilled. Nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's nobody else's responsibility or job to make sure I'm happy. That's on me.
Yeah.
So if I can get really honest, like get into the gritty honest of the desire, what is the motivator? What is the benefit to me if that desire is fulfilled?
Everything changes.
Everything changes.
Everything changes. And that's what I hope people hold on to. Everything changes. Everything changed for me because of my vision quest. What I discovered was that what I really desired is to have a voice for times in my life when I was beaten as a kid in Catholic boarding school and couldn't speak. I wanted to have a voice. When I went through the downsizing and didn't know what I was studying, I figured out I wanted to give voice for people that perhaps seemed to not have a voice, for losing their jobs, for their lives becoming traumatic. Yeah. And that now carried forward so that when I dialed that wrong phone number, the idea of having a radio show was built upon giving other people voice. So that's what you do, is even if it doesn't make sense, Megan, when people are in the middle of this with you, we can say to them, you will learn that thing that will take you on a pathway for all that you desire in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to really touch upon a word that you used there really strongly, which is want. Right? You said, I want people to have a voice, because you wanted to have a voice.
Yeah.
And you created a space where you could have that voice and then allow other people to have that voice as well. The power of the word want is really important here, because what a lot of people do for a long time is wish.
Oh.
And all that a wish does is show you what you think isn't possible. But when you change the sentence from, I wish I could give people a voice, to, I want to give people a voice, the action required for you to fulfill that want becomes the create of the wish, want, create cycle. And when you listen to the guidance of how to do the want, that's when you manifest. That's when you get fulfillment.
Yeah. And I love what you said.
Circle.
And I love what you said. When we can get from want to desire, to truly step into the expansive nature of desire, unshackled by our past, unshackled by anything that happened to us or another, the universe just unloads all of the goodness. Thank you for your message today. Thank you for the work that you do to really assist people in getting to the space of desire, because that does take help to get there. Thank you, Megan, for today.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for everything you do too. You've given me a voice, by the way.
Yeah, I love this, right? Yeah. I'll tell you what, we have really touched on an opportunity for people listening to get rid of whatever it is that is holding them to the wish of Tinkerbell and step into the desire of dragon-fired energy in their lives, baby. Thank you, Megan Edge.
Love it.
I'm Dr. Pat.
Thank you, Dr. Pat.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Carter. And thank you to all of you. We'll see you next time.